software companies do we have in the room? Okay, good. We're in the right place. And then I'm assuming everybody else is providing service to a software company, investing in software companies, or something to that effect. So, well, what I'm hoping to do today is take you a bit on a journey on really what the software M&A process is like. And this is a brand new deck, okay? So if I completely bomb, don't throw me out. If it goes okay, then give me a good thumbs up. But it's something that's different, and I think what we're trying to do here is what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell a little bit more of a story than just get up here and spout out data. And really bring together what is 20 years of experience in representing software companies through a process. And predominantly lower market, 5 to 25, 30 million revenue software businesses. And so let's go ahead and let's get out of here. So really the title of this presentation is Tips for Achieving a Strategic Exit. What do we all want to do? We want to maximize value, right? And we want to de-risk, right? Those are the two things. And sometimes people forget about that de-risking part, but it's critically important. You can do everything right, and if you don't de-risk yourself, you find yourself in a scenario where the buyer walks away and the deal doesn't get done. And I've got to tell you, you got a lot of lawyers in the room here. Take the lawyers up on their offers to spend time with you and do some pre-audit work, right? It's straightforward stuff. Make sure you own your intellectual property. Make sure your contracts are clean. Because buyers will walk away if that stuff is found to be problematic. They don't want to buy a company with $8 million in revenue and $100 million of liability or whatever it may be. I also want to share a little bit about who Software Equity Group is. But I thought this was interesting. As I was preparing this deck, I came across this quote, and I think it's spot on. You know, it's good to have an end to a journey to journey toward, but really it's the journey that matters. And that's the same thing when we think about building our companies, right? I mean, what surprises me is so much time is spent building the business, focusing on the tactical, but not necessarily a lot of time on the strategic, right? What am I doing to build value? What am I doing to plan for that exit? I'm planning for my vacation. You hear all the wealth managers talk about it. Spend more time planning your vacation than you do your retirement. Well, this is probably the biggest asset in your portfolio, right? What are you doing to plan? What are you doing to build relationships with possible buyers? The list goes on and on. I could talk for hours about this stuff, but I got 45 minutes, so I gotta go. But at the end of the day, it's you don't sell your company when you wake up someday and you say, I'm gonna sell today, and think that the process is just gonna work for you. It begins years, decades potentially for some earlier. So take the time to enjoy the journey, and hopefully some of the things that we're gonna discuss today will give you some ideas. Myself, I've been in this industry for about 20 years. My background is engineering. Spent 5 years in engineering. Got my MBA. Decided I'd come and work at Software Equity Group for 2 years. Almost 20 years later, I'm still there. So I obviously enjoy what I do. I really, really like the segment of the market of working with smaller, lower market software businesses. I love working with the entrepreneurs, and over time you start to see things. It's pattern recognition, and frankly, I believe you start to add value. And we invite lots of people to come in and visit with us. We're happy to give you an audit, happy to give you our thoughts. We're happy to give you our advice. Maybe 10% of it's good, but I think that 10% will actually add some real value. The firm itself, we've been in business for 23 years. As I said, I've been there for almost 20. We are different from many investment banks, M&A advisors, in that we only focus on software, right? We only focus on the lower market. We only predominantly focus on advisory services on the sell side, as well as buyouts and some capital raises. We will on occasion do buy-side work, which is good because it allows us to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of the way buyers are thinking. But for the most part, we're representing companies that are interested in finding that strategic exit. Our presence, largely due to our research and 20 years of being in business, is actually very much a global presence. And we leverage that. We leverage that to finding clients. We leverage that when we're selling companies. We also publish a tremendous amount of research, and this is really what has built our brand. It's all free. It's all on our website. We've been doing this since 2001. We publish quarterly reports on what's happening in the industry from an M&A perspective, public market valuation, deal volume, broken down by category, size, delivery model. We do industry-specific research where we'll look at what are the trends in real estate, what are the trends in supply chain, what are the trends in human capital management, what are the trends in the manufacturing space. So I'd invite you to go to the website, download it. It's all there, it's all complimentary, and it's something that we're going to continue to do. We have had experience here in the greater Denver area. We just closed a deal earlier, actually about a year now, the summer of 2015, with Excelos, which is in Colorado Springs, also has a presence here in Denver. And we sold them an external. And then EMS, which is Dean Evans & Associate, a wonderful business that Dean had founded in the events management space. He had had that business for about 20 years and brought on a real nice investment from JMI Equity. So let's go ahead and get into it. So really, as I said, it's the journey that matters, right? And when Richard asked me to do this event, he said to me, everyone wants an exit. So it'll be a phenomenal success. Come and present. And I said to myself, that's true. Most people do want an exit, but not everybody. And here, over the last 6 months, this thing's been going around. It's this concept of, what do you want? Do you want to be rich, or do you want to be king? Because it's really hard to be both. And people who want to be king really have a hard time letting go. And so one of the things you got to actually ask yourself as you're building your business is, what's my goal, right? Do I want to exit at some point to a strategic buyer? Maybe I want to de-risk. I want to bring in some private equity capital. Maybe I'd like to sell 60% of my company and then join with a larger private equity firm who can invest. And maybe that 40% stub equity piece could be worth 2, 3, 4, 5 times what that 60% piece was worth. Hey, that's interesting, right? Because I want to continue doing what I'm doing, but I also want to de-risk myself. Or maybe I want to go and do an IPO. If you're going to do that, though, I wish you all the best. That just sounds terrible to me. And what I would say, my colleague Chris Beeble, who's back in the room here, and I would invite you to talk with Chris. He was indicating to me earlier that we did the math, and sure enough, 1% of all of the software M&A, you take 1%, that's the number of IPOs that are happening every year. There's just so few these days. So we've decided that you're going to go ahead and you want to be king. Well, in that case, you're going out in a casket. I got that from a guy who I was speaking with, learning about his business. I said, what's your exit plan? He says, I'm going in a pine box. All right. That's what he wants to do. And more power to him. He knows what he wants to accomplish. But for many, they want to exit, and they want to exit at maximum valuation, and they've all seen that unicorn, and everybody thinks they're worth a unicorn valuation, which makes my job challenging, which is why we publish all the research, so we can help educate and get everybody a little bit more grounded in reality. But at the end of the day, there's a path, right? And it starts with a plan. You got to ensure you got the right vehicle for the journey. You got to monitor your performance. You got to maximize your differentiation. And you got to pay attention to the signs, because the signs are there. And once you have that, then perhaps you can time and exit to maximize your value. If you do them all right, things can work out wonderfully. And we see it all the time, right? It can be done. It can also be missed. And I got to tell you, it's devastating when you see somebody who has a very big number put on their business and they say, no, I'm not ready for that, and the market shifts, or something dramatic changes, or the buyers make other investments or build other products, and the value can fall. And so you got to be watching what's really going on. So what's the first part? And this is where this deck gets a little bit different, right? I've got this whole concept of a car, right? We're on a journey. It's completely different than what I normally do, because normally I'm staring at numbers and giving you all kinds of data. And I promise there will be data in here. But the journey begins. So the first thing I'd be asking myself as I'm forming a company, if you're an early startup business, or even if you've got a company that's 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, what are you building? I like to say, what's the market pain and what's the medicine you're providing to solve that pain? It's really simple. And if you can't solve that problem, if you can't answer that question, go work on solving the problem. Go think about the medicine some more. Go think about the market some more. Because it all starts there. How will you segment to serve the market, attract customers, and differentiate? How will you position against the competition? Right? Is it sustainable? Is it scalable? What's your total addressable market? How will it change? How fast? How slow? What will your go-to-market operations look like? And how will it be tuned for the end market that you're serving? So this is a terrible example, but imagine you're serving the SMB market. What's the sales model going to look like for that type of business? Right? Is it going to be an outside sales rep that's out there carrying a bag? I hope not, because your average cost to sale is going to be at a point where you're going to go broke. And so you got to make sure that when you're designing your business, you're designing a go-to-market plan that fits with the market that you're going to be serving. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then the last thing on this one is, who are your strategic buyers, and what are you doing today to build relationships with them, right? You think about your sales process. A typical sales process for an enterprise software company, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 4 months, maybe it's 8 months. What's the sales process for your company? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? What are you doing to begin the pre-sales process, right? What are you doing to build awareness? What are you doing so that when that CEO is in the room with that strategic buyer and he's mad as all get out because something's happened with the customer that was critical, and he's pounding on the table so that he says, what about company XYZ? How are you in his head? It's all about pre-sales. So what market do you serve? And are you built for the journey ahead? Okay, this is really basic. But I see people fail on this one over and over and over again. So on the left, we got the ocean. On the right, we got a lake, right? And if we think about this, everybody talks about the ocean. It's what you read in the Wall Street Journal. It's what's exciting, right? It's a huge total addressable market, multi-billion. It's where the unicorns are. It's where we see the 50 times revenue multiples, the multi-billion dollar deals with $19 billion for WhatsApp with 13 employees. Right? That's amazing. It's high risk, it's high return, right? Significant, well-capitalized competitive threats. I mean, think about the ocean. It's treacherous, right? There's sharks. There's all kinds of creatures in there, right? You get rogue waves. You better be prepared for this, because it's real, right? Consider the significant number of the capital ways to drive rapid innovation and go-to-market investments. It's big multiples. It's big failures, right? And your exit timing is going to be critical. Now, on the other side, right, you've got this concept of the lake, right? Now, maybe it's 250 to 750 million dollar market. It's lower risk, low return. Maybe it's that double instead of the grand slam. Maybe it's a triple instead of the grand slam, right? You're going to see less competition. You're going to see some solid multiples, in my opinion. You potentially are going to bootstrap to exit. I'd ask you to think about that, right? And you're likely got more time and less need for outside capital. So where do I see people make mistakes? I see people make mistakes where they build a ski boat for the ocean, right? Or they're going to go out and they're going to build a racing yacht for the lake. So they're going to take all kinds of money into the business, and they're going to go serve the market on the left-hand side of this slide. And as a result of that, they're going to be so diluted when it comes time to sell the business that there's really not the return that was once there for them. So think about that. Think about what alternatives exist. Be intelligent and respect your capital, your equity table, right? And thinking about what's going to happen down the road and where you fit in the market. Another thing that's very interesting to me is the measuring of performance. How do you measure the performance of your business? And here we've got this simple example of basically of what you would see on the dashboard of your car. Right? You got your speedometer, you got your tachometer, you got your temperature gauge, you got your fuel, right? If you're driving this car, you're absolutely blind right now. You have absolutely no idea how that car is performing. Wasn't this the same thing when we think about our company? What are we doing to really understand how our business is performing, right? With data comes the power to make quality decisions. Without the data, we're driving blind. So we bring up the data. So what does this data tell us? Well, car's going about 63 miles an hour. That's okay. Car's got plenty of gas. That's okay. The car's about to red line. That's not good, right? So it looks to me like this thing's in third gear. Its engine is running extremely hot, and the engine's going to blow up, right? So we've got a problem. So the option, by just looking at this simple amount of data, is probably slow down, add a higher gear to the car, get back out on the road, and continue on your way. And why is this different than how we run our companies? Why aren't we thinking about it from the standpoint of, you go to market, you have some success, you really start to grow quickly, you put strain on your services department as you implement the solution in the marketplace, and yet you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And if you do that, what's going to happen? You're going to have retention issues. Your customers are going to become upset with you, right? And yes, you're still growing, but it's coming at a cost. Maybe it would be better to take a step back, slow down a little bit, put the necessary investment into the services organization, in this example, and then get back out there and grow again. Right? Sometimes the best path forward is a small step backwards. But ultimately, it's about the data. And I like to use the term agile management. Right? We use agile development. It's really been a byproduct of cloud, SaaS-based software. What does it mean? It means that we're looking at our companies and we're looking at our development process on a daily, weekly basis and releasing. You know that Amazon releases software every 11 seconds, right? I mean, remember the days of waterfall where we would release our software once a year, right? And now you start talking about people who are cloud-based and they're doing it once a week. And I was just in a meeting 2 weeks ago with a traditional on-premise software provider, and my client was saying release it once a week, and the guy about fell out of his chair because it's different and it's scary. But with this information, this agile marketing, agile development, agile management, you continually get to see how your company is performing. And so start thinking about bringing KPIs into your business. Whatever, and the KPIs really should be tuned to you and to your business. But here's some ideas and some examples, and I'm happy to make this deck available. But some of the things that I look at, right, when I'm thinking about a business is I look at monthly recurring revenue, I look at annual recurring revenue, I look at churn rates, right? I look at the unit economics of a company, right? And we'll get into a little bit more of that. I look at the customer metrics. How is the existing customer base growing? How is the existing customer base shrinking, right? How am I losing customers and why? What are my win-loss rates and why? There's all kinds of information that exists within your business that if you pull it out, you'd be surprised at what you would find. And I know this to be true because every year I bring on 12 to 13 new clients, and every time we go through the process, we suck in all their data, we put it into a pivot table, we analyze the heck out of it, and they go, oh my God, I never knew this. And then they start to see value, and they start to see other ways of viewing their business, which is extremely helpful, and it's very good for us because it allows us to properly position businesses. But I think if you think about it, the takeaway here is running a business the way we normally do it is we look at accounting data. And no disrespect to the accountants in the room. It's a critical offering. We need it. I love it. It's wonderful. But it's not necessarily the right tool for running a business. In some regard, it's like looking into the rearview mirror to drive forward. So think about some of these other metrics and how you might be able to use them. And most importantly, think about unit economics. I would hope that everybody in the room is familiar with unit economics, payback periods, that class you had in economics in college about marginal benefit, marginal cost. It's really what this is all about here. And what it's saying is, let's look at how much are we making per customer over the lifetime of a customer, right? What's the customer's ARR? $100 per year, okay. What's its gross profit margin? 85%, okay, so we get $85 from that customer per year. Good. What's the lifetime value of that customer? 1 divided by its retention. Let's say its retention is 90%. Okay, well that's a 10-year lifetime value. So that customer's worth $850 over its lifetime period. What did it cost me to win that customer? Let's say it was $100. That means my magic number up there is 8.5, right? So my return over the life of that customer is 8.5 times what it cost me to get the customer. Okay, that's interesting. What's even more interesting is analyzing your data so that when you look at that, you can make the assessment of, all right, I'm going to enter a new market. I'm going to develop a new product. Okay, what's that going to do to your magic number? How is your magic number going to increase or decrease? Because if I can sell to this group over here for a 9 magic number, and this group for a 7, well, I'm going to, unless there's a strategic reason why I'm going after this group over, I'm going to focus over here, right? Until there's no more opportunity, then maybe I'll move over to this group, okay? So this is interesting. You got your KPIs. You know, it's telling you what's going on. You're performing well. Your car's going 65 miles per hour at 1,700 RPM. You fix the gear problem. So you're cruising along. Everything appears to be great. But then you take a moment and you look outside, or you look a little bit deeper and you realize you're on a racetrack. And you just got passed by a car going 200 miles an hour, right? So your car looks good internally, but you gotta look a little deeper. And so this is where we would suggest you start to segment your business, right? So look at the KPIs at the level that I was just describing, but then take it one step further. So now instead of looking at my magic number across my business, why not look at my magic number by geography? Why not look at my magic number by product line? Why not look at my magic number by medium versus large customers? I mean, I can go on vertical. I go on and on and on with this stuff. And it's going to give me really interesting and insightful data into my business. And so, idea for improvement, segment your metrics, right? Dive into your data. Pivot tables are your friend. They're really easy to use, right? Look at the data. Look at the leads. Look at the annual recurring revenue. Look at the sales performance, right? The list goes on and on and on. There is a massive amount of data that exists inside your business that's waiting to be heard. I guarantee it. And I see it, as I said, all the time. Here's 2 examples. So, both were clients over the last, I'd say, 3 years. EAM, Enterprise Asset Management. So think about you're going to manage the facility here and all the equipment, or maybe a stadium, or maybe a manufacturing facility, the plant assets that are used to create the widgets, whatever they may be. So these guys, they come to us and they're growing about 20% a year, nice business, pure cloud, 80% recurring revenue. I would say 15-20% EBITDA margin, which is wonderful, and bootstrap business. So we start looking at it and we say, okay, this is good, this is interesting. But let's look a little bit deeper, because you've got 10 vertical markets that you're serving. You're not that big of a company. And kind of look at it like a win is a win, but let's really dive in. And so this goes back to that concept of magic number. Once we sliced everything and we looked at everything and we looked at the lifetime value of the customer, which is the retention, and we looked at the ARR, right? And we looked at the customer acquisition cost, what did we find? We found the manufacturing vertical was significantly better than any other markets that they serve. And lo and behold, it was the vast majority of their customers. This question you go back to them is, why aren't you, all your sales efforts and marketing efforts, why are you focusing over here when you have a massive marketing opportunity in manufacturing? Why aren't you going after that market more? Why aren't you investing more there? Why aren't you telling a better story? Because guess what? Once you start doing that, you get more case studies, more success stories, better sales approach, lower cost of customer acquisition, more successes, it breeds more success. And on the other side, what's lifetime value? No idea, right? E-commerce company, growing nicely, 25% per year, but 80% retention. So you grow at 25%, you lose 20%, means you grow at 5%. Okay, that's what you call spinning your wheels, right? It's just depressing to see a company do so well on the sales side, but see it go out the back door. Why is that happening? So you look at the data, you look at lifetime value, you look at retention, and lo and behold, what do you find? You find that there's segments of the market, small, medium, large, where the retention was actually 95%. But it was being disguised by all this stuff that was being lost by these smaller and medium. Oh, and guess why? Because they weren't incenting the salespeople to target the high value opportunities. You know, we, the CEOs, the executive teams, you create behaviors, right? You create your own animal or you create your own successes. But when you got the data, it allows you to make the decisions. So now we've talked about what's going on kind of in our car, our gauges. We've talked about how we can segment. We want to segment so that we can be number one at what we do, right? So we can clearly differentiate. You know, you ask somebody, what makes you unique? Well, it's my customer service. It's my support department. It's my implementation team. That's great stuff, guys. But I'm not buying your company because of that stuff, right? You're a lower market software company. You got 5 to 25 million in revenue. I'm a multi-billion-dollar company. I guarantee you I think I can do services better than you. I guarantee you I think I can do support better than you. But what I want is I want your product and I want your technology because it's really, really good. And it's going to enable my sales team that is 1,000 times bigger than your sales team to sell the heck out of it and have tremendous success, right? So what does that mean? I better be able to differentiate myself when I'm selling, when I'm going to the market via my product. I better be number one at something, right? Or number two on my way to being number one. Segment to figure out where you fit and you can differentiate. Don't worry about the size of the market, it'll come. So now let's look outside, because you got the internal intrinsic value of your business, but that is clearly a fact influenced by what's happening in the outside world. It's influenced by the markets, the competition, the valuations in the market. You know, and if you think about it, as I say, in the lower market, products and customers, customer momentum drive valuation. Right? Be aware that strategic buyer demand may also be limited to a window of time. So, you know, an example of that would be that kind of extreme straw man scenario is you got one buyer for your company. He's a really good buyer, right? And he's really interested in buying your business. And what happens? You say, no, I'm not interested. I'm going to grow this thing for a few more years, and then we'll sell it. And the buyer goes out and buys another company. Buyer places his bet. He's not buying it, right? Now that's a terrible example. But you got to be thinking that way as you think about when it comes time to exit. This is not selling a house down the street, right? This is selling the mansion down the street, where you're getting an emotional feel and buy from the buyer. And that individual or those individuals that will buy that are only going to come through at a window of time, and you need to be able to take advantage of it. So let's start with what's happening in the overall market. So some quick data for you. The M&A markets, the public markets, they've been fantastic. They continue to be fantastic. Valuations are strong. We, as I said, we do a lot of research. We publish a lot of research. We have what we call the SCG SaaS Index. It's comprised of all the publicly traded SaaS companies. Within there, we can kind of see how these companies have been performing. I focus on three things when I look at this. One is enterprise value to revenue multiple, right? So basically, what's the trading price divided by their revenue? Their gross profit margin, you know, the cost to deliver the service, right? So in the cases of a software company, your cost to host, your cost to do support, your cost to implement a customer, those are all your costs of sale, right? You look at the public market companies, you see companies that have about 69, 70% gross profit margin. I tell you, most of my clients, I see it at like 75 to 80% gross profit margin. And then the last one is trailing 12-month revenue growth. And the reason for that is these are SaaS companies, these are cloud companies, recurring revenue model businesses. These are the guys that are taking over the world, right? If they're not growing, we got a serious problem. But also look at what the median size of these businesses. So 25% revenue growth on a 200 million revenue business, that's good growth. Last thing I'll say on this slide is if you're not SaaS, be concerned. I got to be honest, if you're a licensed model business with maintenance and support, you came into the office and you said you wanted us to help you sell, you better have a really good story. And it's getting more and more difficult. Look at this. On the right-hand slide, up on top, 2009, there were 50 cloud transaction SaaS companies. You look at that in 2015, 601. Where's that going to be in 3 years? Look at the percentages. Over here, since 2013, we've gone from like 20%, now we're at 35% of all deals. Those are the ones that are getting the premium valuations. I'll buy an on-premise software company, but I'll buy it for your customers. And then I'll transition those customers to my cloud solution. Or I might buy that because I want some domain knowledge and expertise that I can incorporate into my platform. but I'm certainly not paying you a premium for that product and that technology. Over here, what really drives valuation of SaaS companies? The correlation is clearly with revenue growth, right? The more the company's growing, the higher the valuation. It's pretty clear. Size also matters, as you saw on the prior slide. Again, I'll get you guys these slides so you can look at it. So the last thing that I'm going to get into is exit timing. This kind of goes to what I was talking about, that single buyer example. So transaction destination 310 miles, but you're going 100 miles an hour, you get there in 3 hours, right? That sounds fantastic. The reality is, you don't control your destiny, I think, the way that you expect that you do. If you got a good product, good technology that's going to be bought because of your technology, there's going to be a window in time and you need to seize that. If you miss it, there's likely to be another one, but you're going to probably have to do some things a little bit different. So think of your business, as I said, like a rare piece of real estate that you can sell it at any time, but it takes a special buyer to maximize value. Those buyers don't come along every day, and often only once in a business's lifetime. This is an example. What happens in the software industry is you have a herd-like mentality. And when one buyer buys, you see all the other buyers buy. And that's because I got to differentiate, I got to keep up with what that company did. This is business intelligence. You know, there used to be this category of these huge Cognoses and Hyperion and business objects, right? These guys own the market for BI. They don't exist anymore unless you go talk to the guys at IBM, SAP, or Oracle, right? They've been subsumed by those businesses. But look at the period in time in which those companies were bought. Now, I use this data because it's publicly available, but you could see the exact same thing if you look at companies that have 5 to 25 million, right? I see something, it's interesting, it differentiates me, I'm going to buy it. I'm probably going to buy and spend the most on the first purchase, and the next guy, my competitor, he's probably going to go do the same thing. Because if I'm an ERP company and I'm selling cloud software, and I just bought an e-commerce engine, my competitor is going to look at that and go, oh my gosh, I could go buy an e-commerce engine. So he's going to go buy one, and they're going to all get consolidated. And your choice is going to be, do you participate in that round of consolidation, or do you wait? And if you wait, who's going to be your buyer? Fortunately, these things do have a tendency to reinvent themselves. And so in the BI space, we've got these new entrants, right? The ClickViews, the Spotify's, the Tableaus of the world that are kind of changing the way BI is done. So that's fantastic. But I got to tell you, when you're a 15 million, 20 million, 30 million revenue business that's on-premise software doing traditional BI, the transition to be able to do what those folks are doing is really difficult. It's the classic innovator's dilemma that we've all likely studied. So this is something that I wanted to put together just to kind of give you an idea of how this math works. Okay? So top line, I've got revenue. I've got a company that is growing at 35% per year in the first 2 years, and then it drops to 30% for years 3 and 4, and then goes down to 25% for years, what is that, 5, 6, and 7, something like that. And so I think that's pretty realistic, because as you grow a company, it gets harder and harder to grow, right? You got to grow more. It's easy to grow on the rule of small numbers. 100% growth on $1 million, a whole lot easier than 100% growth on $100 million. So I think that's realistic. And then you got this concept of enterprise value revenue multiple. Well, I think I'm pretty knowledgeable on this side of it. So you start out somewhere in that 3x range, right? And lo and behold, we see this opportunity in 2020. Somebody came knocking on the door and wanted to buy your company. And so they offered you 6x, right? So you decide that you'll consider that. That's an enterprise value of about $70 million. That's good. Yeah? For a company with $11 million in revenue, I'd say that's really good. And you say, well, no, I'm going to keep operating my company. So you operate the company for 3 or 4 more years. You know, in hard dollars, you're going to get $78 million, right, out at the end. But you can't think that way. These are present value dollars. There's also execution risk that's tied to this, and I threw in a discount rate of 12%. And anybody who really analyzes business will tell you that 12% discount rate is a really generous discount rate, right? I would say most people who are modeling are going to be closer to 20% for privately held companies. So then if I do that, and I bring everything back to present value, you'll see right here, that's $43 million. Back here, 2023, $35 million. So they had an opportunity and they didn't do it. So message of the story, exit timing is critical. right? Listen to the markets. Listen to the buyers. Hear what they have to say. Don't be afraid. If you want to be king, ignore all of this. But if you want to be rich, listen to what they have to say. And you'll get another opportunity. So, transaction destination, 310 miles, probably plus or minus 200 miles. Here's 3 examples. Dassault Systems bought Ingenuity. This is, I think, my last slide. Ingenuity came to us. They're a tiny little company in computer-aided formulation, product lifecycle management for process manufacturers. They come and visit us. We tell them, keep operating. There's nothing happening in the industry that would indicate to us that you need to sell your company. He calls us 2 weeks later. He says, one of the big PLM vendors just called me and they want to acquire my company. It wasn't Dassault. And we said, well, you know, they're knocking. Let's go out and let's run a small process. Let's talk to 3 or 4 strategic buyers. And so we spoke to Dassault, we spoke to UGS, we spoke to SAP, we obviously spoke to PTC. And at the end of the day, the buyer was Dassault Systems at a very strategic price. It was way before he had ever envisioned of selling his company. And you know, maybe if he had waited 10, 15 more years, he could have got more money, but that was pretty good money to get at that point in time. 360 facility, same deal. Lo and behold, that product, that company is now the platform that is being used by about a 200 million revenue business for all of their products, right? That product, that platform, that 360 facility had was critically important to the future of Accruent. And then the last one, Taleo Sativa. So Jason Moreau is a dear friend, will get up here with me, and we've done this together in presentations, where Jason has said, I worked for free for 3 years. In 2005, 2004, I had an opportunity to sell my company. I didn't do it. I waited, I ran my company for 3 years, I grew my company 20-25% per year. I decided 2007, which was a good time, it's time to sell my business. We sell it to Taleo, great company that's now part of Oracle. What happened? You had an applicant tracking software solution and performance management solution for the small, medium business segment, really medium business segment. Everybody placed their bets. His value was his customer base. His value was no longer his product. So while his company grew, his market multiple compressed. And so then Jason now gets up there, joins me and says, I worked for free for 3 years. Probably could have been doing something different. The very next day, Taleo acquired Learn.com because they needed a learning management system to complement their offering. They paid a huge price for that business, right? Because it was something that they did not have in their product portfolio. So tips for achieving a strategic exit: monitor and measure KPIs, strive to build a solid foundation, think agile management, segment your business at a granular level and position to be number 1, understand the market in which you play and build appropriately, pay attention to your surroundings and read the signs, and don't fool yourself into believing you will reach your destination on your own time. So I don't know how I did from a timing standpoint, but that's what I got. 10 minutes? Fantastic. So I guess we've got a little bit of time for Q&A if anybody's got any questions.
So your software company you've identified to acquire, when it's the right time to start building that relationship, what's the best way to do it?
So I would start building the relationship as soon as you possibly can. It's never too early, you know. Most of the time for the software companies, you want to get to know the product people within the organization where your solution will complement their offering. So if you can do that, and you meet them at trade shows, or you can fly to wherever they're located and take them out to coffee, that's a great thing to be doing. And over time, more people in the organization and work your way up. And when they all of a sudden say to you, hey, you know, I think you need to talk to Joe over corporate development, that's when you guys say, okay, now it's getting serious, right?
Start with the product.
I would always start with the product people. Yeah.
Is the deck on the site?
We'll put it wherever it needs to go. We will send it to you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Sure, you talked about SaaS for software. What about, how does mobile fit into this?
I think of mobile as just an extension of any
So
software
SaaS
application.
mobile is the same thing, right?
It's just a model. It's a user interface, right? So I think about it as it would be different if it's a consumer-based model versus an enterprise model, right? But in most cases, in my world where I work, it's enterprise-based software, and they'll typically have a mobile solution as well as a traditional computer-based solution.
I'm thinking more B2B2C. So the B2B is the selling ground. I'm just wondering if you, because I was interested in the way that you did that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I don't do a lot of work on like B2C. That one company you saw up there that was doing e-commerce, they were selling a solution to companies that would then sell their products to consumers.
Yeah.
But consumer markets, it's a tough market. So I apologize, but I don't think I have a good answer for you.
How do you see difference in valuations versus SaaS?
Yeah, so I look at this in two ways. There's three things. So there's more than that. You get this concept of fake cloud, right? Don't be fooled by the fake cloud. Fake cloud would be, I've got a client-server solution. I'm going to host it via Citrix or Windows Terminal Services, and I'm going to deliver it to you via some form of a web interface. That's fake cloud, right? That just doesn't scale, right? Because I got to spin up an instance for every customer. Where this gets tricky is people believe in this religious battle on multi-tenant databases, and it was for a while there, if you didn't have a single database that was multi-tenant, then you weren't true cloud. I totally disagree with that. In fact, if you try to sell that company to Oracle, they'll tell you got to redo the database. I'm fine with a single database that can be partitioned to serve multiple customers. I don't have any issue with that. You got schemas that allow you to really rev that thing, right, so that you can intelligently scale it. But the application server, it's got to be multi-tenant, right? I mean, that's the difference between hosted. Hosted is one app server, one database, one customer. That's terrible. And if that's the case, in my opinion, you're a legacy-based software provider. Nobody's really going to be all that interested in your technology. Hence, your customers are going to be the value of your business and maybe your annuity stream. We're good? I don't have any more. Any more questions? All right, well, hey, listen, I really appreciate it. Thanks for being my trial audience on this. If you have any additional questions, you can email me.